I grew up in a house where silence meant danger. My father, Harold Whitman, wore pressed suits even on Sundays. He was a corporate lawyer, sharp tongue, sharper eyes. He believed discipline fixed everything. My mother, Rowena, believed clay could fix what words never could. She spent hours in the garage sculpting shapes that didn't look like anything to me, twisted torsos, hollow faces, hands without fingers. Is that supposed to be a bird or? I asked once, standing at the door. She didn't look up. It's movement, she said. You won't understand yet. Dad snorted behind his newspaper. Neither does anyone else. They fought quietly at first. Passive remarks, missed dinners. Eventually, quiet turned into slammed doors. Dad read to me every night, history books, courtroom memoirs. He smelled like ink and aftershave. Mom stopped joining us. She stayed locked in the garage, hands cracked with clay, radio humming old jazz like it was keeping her alive. One night, after a bad argument, Mom vanished. We found her at dawn in Oak Ridge Park, crouched under a sycamore tree, shaping mud like a child. There you are, Dad said, voice shaking. We've been looking everywhere. She smiled, dirt under her nails. I didn't go anywhere. You just never look. After that, something broke permanently. Dad worked longer hours. Mom retreated further into herself. I retreated into books. By 17, I'd read almost everything in Dad's office: law, psychology, criminal cases. I learned how people lie long before I learned how they love. Then Dad left. I can't do this anymore, he said one night, packing his briefcase. Mom didn't cry. She just stared at her hands. Money disappeared fast after that. I convinced Mom to take a waitress job at a roadside diner. She lasted 3 weeks, spent her paycheck on imported sculpting tools. We're getting evicted, I shouted. And you bought marble dust? It's an investment, she whispered. The landlord didn't care about dreams. We moved into a cheap motel off Route 16. That night, while Mom slept, I applied to every job I could find. That's when I saw it. Live-in babysitter needed. Immediate pay. Private estate. The number called me back in 10 minutes. The house was miles from town, too big, too quiet, white gates, security cameras that followed me as I walked up the drive. Before I could knock, something flew past my head and exploded against the wall. Grape juice. I hate grape juice. Another can followed. Inside stood 2 identical girls, maybe 10 years old. Blonde hair and matching braids, eyes sharp like glass. Oh great, one said. Another one. I'm here for the babysitting job, I said carefully. You don't look old enough. You don't look polite. That earned me a grin. Their father appeared seconds later. Graham Holloway. Mid-40 seconds, calm smile, expensive watch. Apologies, he said. They're spirited. I noticed. You'll be staying nights sometimes. Full responsibility. Good pay. How good? He slid an envelope into my hand. I peeked inside. $5,000. Deal, I said. The girls leaned in close. We break nannies, one whispered. Fair warning. Good, I replied. I don't bruise easy. The house felt wrong at night. Footsteps when no one walked. Doors that didn't stay shut. A maid who refused to speak to me. One night, I heard crying. Then silence. One of the twins, Lennox, was missing. She went to her place. The other twin, Arden, said calmly. What place? You ask too many questions. By morning, Lennox was back. No explanation. When I told Graham, he waved it off. They're grieving. Their mother's in a vegetative state. That explained cruelty, not disappearance. Over weeks they tormented me, ruined clothes, hid my phone, glued my desk chair. Then one night, after I snapped and yelled, Lennox said quietly, You leave too, don't you? I froze. What? Everyone leaves. That was the night things changed. The fire happened 3 weeks later. Smoke woke me. Heat burned my lungs. The basement door was open, flames everywhere. Lennox was trapped. I dragged her out seconds before firefighters arrived. She survived. The basement didn't. When investigators forced open a sealed room upstairs, They found everything: gold bars, offshore cash, fake passports. Graham Holloway was arrested 2 days later. The twins were sent to their aunt in Seattle. I failed my scholarship exam from exhaustion. Then, 6 months later, $1 million appeared in my account. From Elise Holloway, their mother. I met her once she recovered. "You were the first adult who didn't abandon them," she said. "That matters." I used the money to study law. Mom sold her sculptures for real this time. Some dreams don't die. They just wait for the right cost. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that house. About how children learn cruelty from silence. About how survival doesn't always look brave. And about how babysitting taught me more about people than any courtroom ever could. I still remember the smell of cheap coffee and wet asphalt that night, because that was the moment my life split into a before and an after. Back then, I was 21. Broke in a way that digs into your bones. The kind of broke where your bank app refreshes slower because even it's embarrassed to show the balance. I had dropped out of community college halfway through the semester after my dad got laid off and my mom's hours at the diner were cut. Rent didn't care about excuses, and neither did the electric company. So I did what everyone around me did when things got desperate. I took whatever work I could find. Babysitting wasn't new to me. I'd watched neighbors' kids since I was 14. Diapers, homework, late-night cartoons, the usual. I thought I'd seen every kind of family there was. I was wrong. The job posting was simple. Too simple, honestly. Evening babysitter needed. Quiet kids, easy pay, cash. 1 night a week. References appreciated but not required. No photos, no last name. Just an address in a quiet suburb outside a small town most people only passed through on their way somewhere better. I hesitated for maybe 10 seconds before replying. When the woman called me, her voice was calm and flat, like she was reading a grocery list. "Can you start tonight?" she asked. That should have been my first warning. I arrived just before 7. The house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, all beige siding and neatly trimmed bushes, like it had been copy-pasted from a real estate brochure. Porch light on. Curtains drawn. Nothing obviously wrong. I knocked. The door opened almost immediately. The parents, if that's what they really were, looked normal in the way mannequins look normal. Smiling, clean, well-dressed, but empty behind the eyes. The father barely spoke. The mother did all the talking, quick and clipped. "Kids are upstairs by 9, she said, already grabbing her purse. "No TV after bedtime. Snacks are labeled. Emergency numbers on the fridge." She handed me a folded piece of paper like it weighed nothing. The kids stood behind them. A boy and a girl. Not siblings by looks, but close enough in age to pass. The boy was maybe 8. The girl slightly younger. Both too still. Too quiet. "This is..." The woman paused, then smiled wider. "Our sitter." They didn't say hi. The parents hugged them quickly, like checking a task off a list. "We'll be back late," the father said, already opening the door. And then they were gone. "No, thank you. No. Call us if you need anything." Just the sound of tires pulling away. The kids went back to the living room without a word. "I'm Reese," I said, trying to sound upbeat. "We can hang out for a bit before bedtime." They sat on the carpet and pulled out a deck of cards. Old ones, worn edges, bent corners. They played some kind of matching game I didn't recognize, laying cards face down, flipping them over slowly, deliberately. They didn't argue, didn't laugh, didn't even react when one of them won. It was unsettling, but I told myself I was overthinking it. Some kids are just quiet. By 8:30, I suggested bedtime. They stood up immediately. No complaints. No stalling. The boy stopped at the top of the stairs and looked back at me. "Lock the doors," he said. His voice was calm, not scared, just serious. I went back downstairs, checked the locks, and tried to relax. The house was too quiet. No ticking clock, no hum from the fridge. Even the air felt heavy, like it wasn't moving right. I was scrolling on my phone when I heard the knock. Soft at first, then 3 sharp raps. I assumed it was the parents' forgotten keys, maybe. I walked to the door. Through the frosted glass, I saw a shape. Tall. Still. Not shifting weight, not fidgeting. Just standing there. I put my hand on the lock. Upstairs, a scream ripped through the house. Not a scared scream. A warning scream. "Don't open it," the boy yelled. "Please." The girl's voice joined in, high and frantic. "He's not allowed inside." The knock turned into pounding. The handle twisted violently. I stumbled backward. "What is happening?" I yelled, more to myself than anyone. I ran for the phone on the wall. Dead. My phone gone from my pocket. I turned toward the kitchen. And that's when I saw him. Standing outside the window. 2 feet away. His face looked like it had been cooked and left out in the sun. Skin split and blackened, pulled tight over bone. His mouth opened and closed like it forgot how to work. He pressed both hands to the glass. Not angry. Begging. I ran upstairs. Locked the kids' door behind me. They weren't crying anymore. They were calm. Too calm. "He only comes when you're here," the girl said quietly. "He tries to stop us," the boy added. Something cold slid down my spine. "What are you talking about?" I whispered. They smiled. Not with their eyes. The sound downstairs changed. No more pounding. A soft sliding noise. Like a door opening. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Coming up. The door exploded inward. The man rushed past me and grabbed the kids, not to hurt them, but to restrain them. They screamed. Not like children. Like animals. They bit him. Scratched him. Dug fingers into his wounds. I crawled past them, my foot screaming with pain where something sharp had pierced it. I didn't look back. I ran. Out the back door. Into the night. A woman grabbed me outside and dragged me to her car. She drove like hell. Later, through tears, she told me the truth. The man was her brother. The children had done that to him. The parents covered it up. They always did. Babysitters disappeared. She watched the house. Waited. Hoped someone would survive. I did. Barely. I never babysat again. I moved. Changed everything. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, too quiet, I swear I hear a knock. And children laughing upstairs. Waiting. I remember the exact sound my phone made when my bank balance hit 0. It wasn't dramatic. No alarm. No warning. Just a quiet vibration in my hand while I stood in line at a gas station, pretending to compare prices on gum I couldn't afford. That tiny buzz felt louder than any siren. It meant rent was overdue. My phone bill was hanging by a thread. And the last job interview I'd pinned my hopes on had sent the same polite rejection email they all used. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. I was 26, living alone in a shoebox apartment on the edge of town, surviving on instant noodles and borrowed optimism. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't unqualified. I was just stuck. And being stuck is dangerous, because desperation makes bad ideas sound reasonable. That's how Craigslist entered my life. I'd always laughed at the horror stories, missing couches, sketchy roommates, weird job opportunities written entirely in caps lock. But that night, lying on my mattress with the springs biting into my back, I typed babysitting jobs near me into the search bar like it was a lifeline. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I had experience. I told myself, what's the worst that could happen? By midnight, my inbox had 3 replies. 2 were obvious scams. The third one was from a woman named Lenora. Her message was short, polite, almost boring. "Hi. We're looking for a babysitter this Saturday evening. 2 kids. Easy night. We'll be out for a few hours. Pay is good. Let me know if you're interested." I replied immediately. We exchanged messages back and forth. She said she and her husband were attending a family event. They'd be gone from about 5:30 p.m. to a little after 10. The kids were 7 and 9. Old enough to entertain themselves, young enough to go to bed early. Easy money. She gave me the address. I copied it, pasted it into my Maps app, and barely glanced at it. That was my first mistake. Saturday came faster than I expected. I remember standing in front of my bathroom mirror, tying my hair back and telling my reflection, "You're fine. You've done this before." I wore jeans, a hoodie, sneakers, nothing flashy. I wanted to look responsible, forgettable, safe. Before I left, I texted my friend Rhea, "Babysitting tonight, Craigslist job, pays stupid good." She replied almost instantly, "Must be nice. Don't get murdered." I laughed at the time. I shouldn't have. The neighborhood hit me the second I turned off the main road. The streetlights were dim, spaced too far apart. Houses sat crooked, like they'd slouched over the years and never bothered standing back up. Lawns were patchy, fences leaned, and more than a few windows were boarded up. Not violent, not loud, just tired. I slowed my car, double-checking the address. The house I was looking for sat at the end of the block. 2 stories, paint peeling, porch light flickering like it couldn't make up its mind. I parked, engine still running, and stared at it longer than necessary. Don't judge, I told myself. People fall on hard times. I shut off the engine and stepped out. The air smelled like damp wood and old leaves. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked once and went quiet. I climbed the porch steps and knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. I checked my phone. 5:22 p.m. Right on time. Just as I was about to knock a third time, the door opened. The man standing there wasn't who I expected. He was tall but hunched, like gravity had started winning early. His hair was thin and gray, matching the beard that covered most of his face. His eyes were sharp, though too sharp, and they swept over me in a way that made my skin prickle. "Sorry," he said, voice rough, like gravel dragged across concrete. "Didn't hear you. Ears ain't what they used to be." "That's okay," I said, forcing a smile. "I'm the sitter, right?" he cut in. "Yeah, come on in." He stepped aside without waiting for confirmation. I hesitated for half a second, then crossed the threshold. The smell hit me first. Stale food, something sour, something damp. The house was a mess. Not cluttered in a cozy way, more like neglected. Trash bags stacked near the wall, old magazines, empty bottles. The kind of mess that doesn't come from kids playing but from adults giving up. I swallowed hard. "My wife will be back any minute," the man said, closing the door behind me. "She took the kids out real quick. Forgot something." "Oh," I said. "Okay." He pointed down a hallway. "Living room's down there. Sit, make yourself comfortable." I did as I was told, my sneakers sticking slightly to the floor with each step. The living room was dim, lit only by a lamp with a yellowed shade. A faded blue couch sagged in the middle, like it had given up on supporting human weight. I sat on the edge of it. No toys, no drawings on the fridge, no family photos. Nothing that said children live here. My stomach tightened. From somewhere else in the house, the man muttered to himself. Drawers opened. Closed. Something clanged. "Sorry about the mess," he called out. "Lenora's been scatterbrained lately." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Minutes passed. 5, 10. I checked my phone again. 5:38 p.m. The man appeared in the doorway, scratching his beard, smiling like he'd just remembered a joke. "Hell," he said. "I'm an idiot." "What?" I asked. "The kids," he said. "She already took them downstairs. Basement. That's where they like to hang out." My heart skipped. "Downstairs?" "Yeah. Nobody uses the front much." He pointed to a door across the room. "Why don't you go say hi?" Something in his tone made my skin crawl. Too casual, too rehearsed. "Shouldn't I wait for your wife?" I asked. He waved a hand. "She'll be back. Go on." I stood up slowly. Every instinct I had screamed, no, but I didn't want to seem rude, or paranoid, or ungrateful for a job I desperately needed. I crossed the room and opened the basement door. Cold air rushed up, carrying a smell so bad it made my eyes water. The stairs disappeared into darkness. No lights, no voices, no signs of life. "Hello?" I called, my voice barely above a whisper. Nothing answered. Behind me, floorboards creaked. I didn't turn around. I closed the basement door. That was it. Whatever this was, I wanted no part of it. I walked quickly toward the front door, heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The knob didn't turn. For half a second, panic exploded in my chest. Then it gave. Unlocked. I yanked the door open and bolted. Behind me, the man shouted something my name. Maybe, or hey, or wait, but I didn't stop. I ran to my car, fumbled with the keys, threw myself inside. As I backed out, I saw him burst onto the porch, arms waving wildly. I hit the gas. I didn't look back. I drove until my hands stopped shaking. Then I pulled over and cried. Not loud, dramatic sobs, just silent tears sliding down my face while I stared at the steering wheel, trying to convince myself I hadn't imagined everything. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe there were kids. Maybe I was just scared. But fear doesn't come from nowhere. I called Rhea. She didn't let me finish before saying, "You call the cops. Now." So I did. I told them everything. The address, the man, the basement. The operator's voice was calm, steady. "We'll take care of it," she said. "You did the right thing." I never heard anything else about it. No follow-up. No news story. No closure. A few days later, I got a call from a grocery store I'd applied 2 weeks earlier. Cashier position, decent pay, safe. I took it without hesitation. I never went back to Craigslist. Some nights, though, when I'm locking up the store after closing, I think about that house, that basement, and the kids who may or may not have been real. And I remind myself that sometimes surviving means trusting the voice that tells you to run. I never planned on becoming a babysitter. It just sort of happened, the way most small-town jobs do. One summer after high school, when gas money and diner bills started piling up faster than common sense, I told my mom I'd take anything that paid cash. Babysitting sounded harmless. You sit, you wait, you keep small humans alive. Easy math. That's what I believed back then. That belief died on a quiet street called Briar Hollow Road, in a town most people pass through without noticing. The kind of place with one blinking traffic light, a hardware store that smells like rust and sawdust, and neighbors who wave even if they don't remember your name. I was 19, old enough to think I knew things, young enough to be wrong about all of them. The family lived in a pale blue house at the end of the block, white porch railing, wind chimes that never shut up, and a maple tree out front that dropped sticky leaves every fall. The Hollis family. Good people, everyone said that. Church-going, quiet, paid on time. The kind of family you trust without asking why. I'd been watching their kids for about 8 months. Long enough that they stopped giving me instructions like I was defusing a bomb. Long enough that I knew which cabinet hid the good snacks, and which stair creaked if you stepped on it wrong. That Saturday started like every other night I worked for them. Boring. Comfortably boring. Mrs. Hollis was in the hallway mirror fixing her mascara, leaning in close like the mirror might lie to her if she stood too far back. Mr. Hollis was already halfway out the door, patting his pockets. Keys jangling. "Kids ate already," she said. "No screens after 8. Caleb's allergic to peanuts. Landlines in the kitchen. You've got my number on the fridge." She paused, lipstick halfway to her mouth. "And if the phone rings," she added, casual but not really, "don't answer, unless it's us." I remember smiling and saying, "Sure," like that was the most normal thing in the world. At the time, I didn't ask why. They left at 7:30 sharp. Their car pulled away slow, headlights sweeping across the living room walls like passing ghosts. The house settled the way old houses do. Wood sighing, pipes clicking, everything finding its place again. The kids were easy. Caleb, 7, like dinosaurs and correcting adults. June, 5, followed him everywhere like a shadow with pigtails. We played a board game that was missing half the pieces and laughed when the dog tried to steal a token. By 8:30, both kids were tucked in, nightlight glowing soft yellow. The hallway smelled like clean laundry and cheap vanilla candles. I stood there a second, longer than necessary, listening to them breathe. That steady rhythm that makes you believe the world is safe. Downstairs, I turned on the TV. Some dumb sitcom rerun. The kind where nobody ever really has problems. The couch swallowed me whole. I kicked off my shoes and reached for my phone. That's when the landline rang. The sound was wrong. Too sharp. Too loud. Like it didn't belong in that room. People didn't use landlines anymore. The Hollises barely did. I stared at the kitchen doorway. The corded phone visible on the wall. Swaying slightly. It rang again. I told myself it was probably them. Forgot something. Wanted to check in. I got up, heart already doing that annoying fast thing, and crossed the kitchen. The floor was cold through my socks. The phone kept ringing, patient and rude. I picked it up. Hello? For a second, there was nothing. No static. No breathing. Just silence so thick it pressed against my ears. Then a man spoke. Did you look in on the kids? His voice was calm. Too calm. Like he was reading off a list. Yeah, I said. They're asleep. A pause. You should check again. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. Not worried. Not curious. Like a reminder. Who is this? I asked. The line went dead. I stood there holding the receiver like an idiot, listening to nothing. When I hung it up, the house felt different, smaller. Like the walls had leaned in. I tried to shake it off. Sat back down. Turned the TV up louder than necessary. Told myself people make weird prank calls. That's life. 15 minutes later, the phone rang again. I didn't want to answer. Every instinct said don't. But responsibility has a funny way of bullying you into bad decisions. I picked up. Why haven't you checked on them? The voice was sharper now. Irritated. I did. I snapped. Stop calling. Silence. Click. My hands were shaking. I noticed that and didn't like it. I stood up, pacing, listening to every sound. The refrigerator hum, the ticking clock, the faint thud of something upstairs that I convinced myself was just a kid rolling over. At 10 o'clock, the phone rang again. I didn't say hello. I can see you, the man whispered. That was it. That was the moment my brain finally caught up with reality. I grabbed my cell and dialed 911. My voice came out thin, like it didn't belong to me. I told them about the calls, about the voice, about the house. The operator asked me to stay on the line. Then her tone changed. Ma'am, she said, faster now. The call is coming from inside the house. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd be sick. Get out, she said. Get out now. I didn't argue. I didn't think. I ran. I didn't even grab my shoes. The front door flew open and cold air slapped me awake. I sprinted down the porch steps, heart trying to claw its way out of my chest. Police cars screamed into the street seconds later, lights painting the houses red and blue. Officers rushed past me into the house, guns drawn. I sat on the curb shaking, arms wrapped around myself, watching my breath fog the air. They brought him out 10 minutes later. He was tall, too thin, hair greasy, eyes wide and bright. He smiled when he saw me. They said he'd been hiding in the hallway closet upstairs, listening, watching, waiting. The kids never woke up. I never babysat again. I still don't answer unknown numbers. Because sometimes, when the room is quiet and my phone lights up, I swear I can hear that voice again. Calm and patient, asking if I've checked. I remember the sound before anything else, the hollow creak of the porch step as I shifted my weight, waiting for the door to open. It was early fall, the kind where the air still felt warm but the evenings carried a sharp edge, like summer refusing to let go. I was 16 then, old enough to think I understood people, young enough to be completely wrong. The house stood at the end of Briar Hollow Lane, a quiet suburban stretch outside Cedar Ridge, the kind of place real estate flyers called family-friendly, and neighbors waved even when they didn't know your name. Fresh paint, white shutters, too perfect. I rang the doorbell once, then again. The chime echoing through the house like it had too much space to travel. I told myself to relax. It was just babysitting. That's what I thought. The door opened and a woman smiled at me like she'd practiced it in a mirror. Her hair was pulled back neatly, not a strand out of place, and she wore a long beige coat, even though it wasn't that cold yet. "You must be Leah," she said. "I'm June Calder. Come in, honey." Her voice was smooth, polite, warm, but not inviting. I stepped inside anyway. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something metallic underneath, like coins. I noticed it without understanding why it made my stomach tighten. Her husband, Ronan Calder, stood near the hallway adjusting his watch. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with tired eyes that didn't match his confident posture. "This is our son, Silas," June said, gesturing toward the living room. An 8-year-old boy sat cross-legged on the floor, controller in hand, eyes glued to the TV. He didn't look up. "Silas," Ronan said firmer. "Say hello." The boy flicked his eyes toward me briefly. "Hey." That was it. I smiled anyway. "Hi, I'm Leah. Nice to meet you." No response. Just the tapping of buttons. Tap, tap, tap. June laughed lightly, like it was cute. "He's shy. Once you get to know him, he opens up." That should have been my first clue. They explained everything quickly. Food already prepped in the fridge, heated up around 7. No guests, no leaving the house. They'd be back by 10, 11 at the latest. They were going to a private event in the city. Ronan would drive me home. "And we'll pay you $120, June added, slipping cash into an envelope and setting it on the counter like bait. "Up front." I hesitated, just a second. $120 was a lot for a few hours. My mom worked double shifts. I wanted to help. I wanted to feel grown. "Sounds good," I said. Ronan crouched in front of Silas. "You behave. You hear me? We expect Leah to tell us you were an angel." Silas nodded slowly, eyes still on the screen. "Good," Ronan said. Then to me, quieter. "Call us if there's any trouble." They left just like that. The front door shut. The lock clicked. And suddenly, the house felt too big. The silence pressed in from every direction, thick and uncomfortable. I sat on the edge of the couch, scrolling through my phone, pretending I wasn't constantly checking on Silas. He didn't move, didn't blink much either. After a while, I tried conversation. "So, what are you playing? Does it matter?" he muttered. I blinked. Just trying to talk." He shrugged. "You talk too much." I swallowed my irritation. Kids say dumb stuff. That's what I told myself. An hour passed. Then another. I heated his food. He ate 2 bites and shoved the plate away. "I'm bored," he said, flopping back dramatically onto the couch. "Well, we can watch something," I offered. "Or play a game. Cards? Board games?" He turned his head slowly toward me, smiled. "Dance." I laughed nervously. "What? Dance?" he repeated. "You're the babysitter. Entertain me." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. Not playful. Not joking. Commanding. "No," I said, firmer. "That's not appropriate." He stared at me for a long moment, eyes dark and unreadable. Then he smiled wider. "You don't have a boyfriend, do you?" My face burned. "That's none of your business." He laughed. "Figures." That was when I decided to call it a quiet night. No more engaging. Just keep him safe until his parents came back. Then he stood up. "Can I hug you?" he asked suddenly, voice sweet and small, like he'd flipped a switch. I hesitated. But he was a kid. A messed up one maybe, but still a kid. "Okay," I said. He wrapped his arms around me and then pain exploded in my forearm. I screamed as his teeth sank into my skin. Before I could react, he yanked my phone from my back pocket and sprinted to the window. "No, Silas," I shouted. The phone disappeared into the darkness outside. I ran to the door, heart pounding. "Stay right there," I said. "Don't move." He didn't answer. The backyard was dark, overgrown, the kind of yard that swallowed light. I stepped outside just long enough to scan the ground. That's when I heard shouting, not from outside, from inside the house. A man's voice, deep, angry. "Where is it?" the voice barked. "Where did your dad hide it?" Silas screamed. My blood turned to ice. I rushed back inside, adrenaline screaming in my ears. The living room was empty. The back door swung open, slamming against the wall. Then silence. Too sudden. My neighbor, Cole Mercer, burst through the front door moments later with 2 other people behind him. "We heard screaming," he said. "Leah, are you okay?" Silas lay slumped on the couch, eyes closed. He was attacked," I stammered. "There was a man." Cole checked Silas's pulse. "He's breathing." Silas's eyes fluttered open. "She did it," he whimpered suddenly, pointing at me. "She hurt me." I froze. "What?" I whispered. People stared. "She's lying," Silas cried. "She's scary. She's a monster." I broke. The police arrived minutes later. Questions flew. Lies unraveled. At the station, I learned the truth. The Calders weren't at an event. They'd been arrested during an armed robbery downtown. Guns, cash, blood. Silas wasn't innocent. He was trained. A distraction. A test. I sat next to him in the station hours later. He didn't look at me. I didn't mean to. He whispered finally. I didn't answer. Some wounds don't bleed. I went home before sunrise, arms wrapped around myself, knowing I'd never be the same. That was the night I learned evil doesn't always scream. Sometimes it smiles and asks for a hug. I still remember the smell of wet asphalt and old carpet mixed together that night, because fear has a way of burning details into your head that never really leave. I was 8 years old, and being alone terrified me more than the dark itself. It wasn't just the silence, it was the feeling that the house became something else when no adults were around, like it was holding its breath, waiting. My name is Lila Monroe, and this is the night I stopped believing that babysitters were just bored teenagers looking for extra cash. I grew up in a quiet neighborhood outside Briar Hollow, Pennsylvania. The kind of place where people waved from their porches and complained about lawn heights like it was serious business. Our house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, a pale blue 2-story with white trim and a narrow hallway that always felt longer at night. That evening started normal. Too normal. My parents were rushing around the house, half-dressed, half-panicked. "Lila, honey, shoes." My mom called, her voice tight as she clipped on earrings in the hallway mirror. "I'm not going," I said from the couch, hugging my stuffed raccoon, Patch, tight against my chest. My dad laughed nervously. "She's been saying that all afternoon." "I don't want to be alone," I whispered. "You won't be," Mom said, forcing a smile. "The babysitter will be here any minute." But minutes kept passing. Outside, rain tapped hard against the windows, wind pushing tree branches against the house with soft, scraping sounds. The sky looked bruised, purple and heavy, and thunder rolled so deep it rattled the picture frames. I followed my parents from room to room like a shadow. "What if she doesn't come?" I asked. "She'll come," Dad said, already grabbing his coat. "We're already late." I grabbed my mom's sleeve. "Please don't go, please." She knelt down, brushed my hair back, and kissed my forehead. "Just a couple hours. You'll be asleep before you know it." They left at 7:12 p.m. I remember because I stared at the microwave clock long after the front door shut, the red numbers glowing like they were watching me. The house felt huge once they were gone. Every sound jumped straight into my chest, the hum of the fridge, the tick of the wall clock, the rain hammering the roof. I pulled Patch closer and sat on the floor, back against the couch, eyes locked on the front door. Then, knock, knock, knock. I actually smiled. I ran to the door without even checking the peephole. Standing there was a woman I had never seen before. She was very small, shorter than my mom, with narrow shoulders and thin arms hanging stiffly at her sides. Her clothes looked old: brown coat, frayed cuffs, shoes worn down at the heel. But what didn't make sense was this. She was completely dry. No rain on her coat, no damp hair, not even a drop. She tilted her head and smiled. It was too wide, too stretched, like her face was trying to tear itself open. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm here to take care of you forever and ever." Her voice sounded calm, almost sweet, but it made my stomach hurt. My babysitter? That's me, she said, stepping inside before I could stop her. The air felt colder when she crossed the threshold. She closed the door behind her and looked around the house like she'd been there before. "What's your name?" I asked. She crouched down so her face was level with mine. "You can call me Miss Alder." Her eyes were dark, not brown dark, like there was no light inside them at all. I nodded because I didn't know what else to do. At first, things seemed okay. I played on the carpet with Patch and my other stuffed animals, lining them up, pretending they were at school. Miss Alder stood near the doorway, watching, not blinking. Minutes passed, maybe more. Time felt weird. When I finally looked up, she was right behind me, so close I could smell her like old paper and something burned. "What you playing?" she asked. "School," I said, scooting away. She smiled again, wider. "Families are important," she said. "Did you know that?" She took my hand before I could pull it back. Her skin was cold and dry, like touching stone. She led me into the hallway where our family photos hung, frame by frame. "See?" she whispered. I looked at the first picture my parents on their wedding day. Except, they weren't there. Standing where my mom should have been was Miss Alder, smiling. The next photo, and the next. Every picture showed her instead of my parents. "I'm here to take care of you forever and ever," she said. I screamed and yanked my hand free. I ran to my room. My bed was empty. Patch was gone. All of them were gone. I searched everywhere, closet, bathroom, basement, calling their names like they could answer. That's when I heard her voice from the kitchen. Soft, gentle. "I'm here to take care of you forever and ever." I peeked around the corner. She was holding Patch. The oven was on. I screamed. I ran, locked my door, crawled under the covers, shaking. Then I heard whispering from under my bed. "I'm here." Her face appeared, upside down, smile stretching too far. She grabbed my hair. I fought. I screamed. Headlights flashed through the window. My parents were home. The grip loosened. The house went silent. They searched everywhere. They never found me. But if they'd looked closer, they would have seen a new photo on the wall. Me, crying, surrounded by burned, twisted stuffed animals. And standing behind me, a small woman with a smile that went up to her ears. I grew up in a house where nothing bad was supposed to happen. That sounds naive now, but when you're a kid, safety isn't something you analyze. It's just the default setting of the world. Our neighborhood sat on the edge of town, the kind of place where bikes were left in driveways overnight and no one locked their back doors unless we were going out of town. The air always smelled like cut grass and warm asphalt. Ice cream trucks rolled through on Fridays. Adults waved from porches. Bad things happened somewhere else to other people on the news. At least, that's what I believed when I was 8. My parents both worked long hours. My dad was the type who left early and came home tired, boots by the door, shoulders slumped like he carried the whole week on his back. My mom worked part-time but somehow did everything else. Laundry, meals, school forms, dentist appointments. They loved us. I know that now. Back then, I just knew they were always busy. That summer, they were exhausted. One night after dinner, I remember sitting at the table coloring while my parents talked in low voices. Lacey sat beside me, swinging her legs, humming to herself. "We need a break," my mom said, rubbing her eyes. "Just 2 nights," my dad replied. 3 max. That's when the idea of a babysitter came up, not a regular one, just someone for a weekend. The flyer went up at the public library a few days later. I went with my mom when she pinned it to the corkboard near the bathrooms. She wrote in neat handwriting, tearing off the little tabs at the bottom to make sure they were even. Responsible babysitter needed. 2 children, weekend stay, references preferred. I remember asking her, "Who's gonna watch us?" She smiled. "Someone nice." A few days later, she got a call. His name was Caleb Ward. At least that's what he said. He was 16, a sophomore or junior at the local high school. He mentioned the school mascot right away, joked about the old football field my dad used to play on. My parents liked that. Familiarity felt like safety. He came over once before the trip so they could meet him. I sat on the stairs again, half hidden, listening. "Yes, ma'am." "No, sir." I've watched my cousins plenty of times. He had that awkward teenage politeness, the kind adults mistake for innocence. The weekend came fast. Thursday evening, my parents packed the car while the sun dipped low, turning the sky orange. My mom hugged us a little longer than usual. "Call if you need anything," she said to Caleb, handing him a list. "Anything at all." "I will," he promised. The car pulled away. The house went quiet in that way it only does when adults leave. No footsteps, no murmuring voices, just space. I retreated to the basement almost immediately. That's where my PlayStation was set up, the controller already warm in my hands. The basement smelled faintly of dust and old cardboard. I liked it that way. It felt like my own world. Hours blurred together, levels completed, enemies defeated. Somewhere upstairs, Caleb moved around, opening and closing doors, turning lights on and off. I barely noticed. That first night passed without incident. Friday morning, Lacey woke me up by jumping on my bed. "Wake up, I'm hungry." Caleb made cereal, poured too much milk, laughed when it spilled. Normal stuff. He turned on cartoons for her and let me disappear back downstairs. Later that afternoon, he came down and watched me play for a while. "You're pretty good at that," he said. "Yeah," I replied, not looking away. "You ever play versus mode?" We played. We laughed. He let me win, then pretended to be mad. To my 8-year-old brain, this felt like validation. A big kid thought I was cool. That night, my friend Nolan came over. We kicked a soccer ball in the backyard until the sun went down. Caleb volunteered to referee, calling out ridiculous penalties. Foul. Excessive coolness. We laughed. Lacey clapped from the porch. Pizza for dinner. Pepperoni grease staining the napkins. Everything felt fine. That's the part that still messes with me. How normal it all felt. That night, lying in bed with my DS glowing faintly, Caleb knocked. "You want to play more games?" he asked. "I'm tired," I said. "No worries," he replied, closing the door. I fell asleep almost instantly. Waking up felt like being pulled out of deep water. The room was dark, too dark. No streetlight glow, no hum of sound, just silence. Then the door moved. A soft click, a slow creak. I turned my head, eyes straining. A shape stood in the corner, tall, still. Before I could scream, a whisper cut through the dark. "Shh, it's okay. It's just me." Caleb stepped closer. My chest felt tight, like something heavy was sitting on it. He pulled at my blanket. The bed dipped. Something inside me snapped. "Stop!" I yelled. He froze. I ran. I didn't even grab my shoes. I sprinted down the hall. When I opened the door, she was standing in the hallway facing my bedroom. "Bedtime," she said. That night I lay still, staring at the door. Whispering leaked through the walls. "Not yet. He's listening. Soon." The handle turned. She stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the hall light. "You should have slept," she said. Her hands closed around my throat. Hard. Cold. Then she screamed. "No, no, no!" She let go and staggered backward, clawing at her own hair. I rolled off the bed and ran. I locked myself in the bathroom and screamed until my voice broke. By the time my parents arrived, Ilara was gone. Aftermath. The police never found her. No records. Fake references. Disconnected number. Years passed. I grew up. I moved away. I forgot the sound of her voice. Until one night, watching the news, I saw her face. Older. Different haircut. Same eyes. Arrested for killing a family she babysat for. The reporter said she claimed they told her to do it. I turned off the TV, went into my kids' room, watched them sleep, and understood something clearly for the first time. Some people don't need monsters. They bring their own. never told anyone about our babysitter until now. I was 8 years old the first time I learned that adults could be wrong. Not careless, not distracted, but wrong in a way that could get you killed. Back then, I lived in a small split-level house on Maple Run Drive, just outside a fading mill town in western Pennsylvania. The kind of place where neighbors waved from their porches, cops took 15 minutes to show up, and everyone said things like, "That stuff doesn't happen here." My dad worked maintenance at the steel plant until it shut down. After that, he picked up night shifts at a distribution warehouse off Route 19. My mom was a respiratory therapist at Mercy Ridge Hospital. Double shifts, rotating weekends, always exhausted. Most nights one of them was home. That changed the winter my mom got promoted. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, feet dangling, swinging slowly while she flipped through a planner. "We can't keep juggling like this," she said, rubbing her temples. "He's too young to be alone." Dad sighed. I know. That's when she said it. "I found someone." I looked up. "Found who?" "A babysitter," she said. "Just for nights when schedules overlap." I didn't like the word babysitter. It felt like a leash, like someone watching me breathe. "I don't need one," I said. "I'm not a baby." Mom smiled tiredly. "I know, buddy. This is just until things settle down." They told me her name was Elara Wynn. Never heard it before. Never heard it again. Until much later. Elara arrived on a Tuesday. Snow was piled dirty and gray along the curb. The porch light flickered like it always did when it was cold. I remember because Dad cursed under his breath when it buzzed instead of turning on clean. She stood on the porch with her hands folded, smiling too politely. Not warm, not friendly, polite. She was thin, not sick thin, just stretched, like someone pulled her upward by the spine. Long coat, hair pulled back too tight, eyes that didn't blink much. "Hi," she said. "You must be Evan," my mom finished. "Yes." Elara nodded slowly, like she was confirming something already decided. "Nice to finally meet you," she said to me. Her voice was soft, but flat, like reading instructions. Dad shook her hand. "Thanks for coming on short notice." "No problem at all," she said. "I like helping families." That sentence didn't sound real. The first night wasn't scary, it was off. She walked through the house asking questions that didn't matter. "Where does this door lead? How old is the furnace? Does anyone ever use the crawl space?" I remember thinking those were grown-up questions, not babysitter questions. When my parents left, she stood in the middle of the living room, listening. Just listening. "You hungry?" she asked finally. "Not really." She nodded. "Okay." Didn't push, didn't offer snacks, didn't sit next to me. She sat across the room, hands folded in her lap, watching the TV without reacting to it. At one point I laughed at something. She turned her head slowly and looked straight at me. The smile came back. Then she looked away. That night, when my parents got home, Mom asked, "Everything good?" Elara smiled. "Perfect." I opened my mouth, then closed it. I didn't know why. Over the next 2 weeks, Elara came over 6 times. She never raised her voice, never touched me in anger, never broke rules. That's what made it worse. One night, while I was doing homework at the kitchen table, she leaned against the counter. "You ever think about dying?" she asked casually. I froze. "No." She nodded. "I did. A lot. When I was your age." I didn't respond. She smiled. "It's okay. Some people don't have to." Another time, she asked, "If your parents disappeared, who do you think would take you?" I shrugged. "My aunt, I guess." She hummed softly. "People always think someone would come." I started getting stomach aches on days she was scheduled. My mom said it was anxiety. She wasn't wrong. She just didn't know why. It happened on a Friday. Snowstorm, power flickering, wind rattling the siding. We were in the living room. I was pretending to read. She sat in the recliner, rocking slightly. "Can I ask you something?" I said. She stopped rocking. "Yes." "Do you live alone?" She smiled wider than before. "No." "With your family?" "Yes." "Where?" She tapped her temple once. "They're very close," she said. "They don't like you." My throat went dry. "Why?" "They think you don't deserve what you have." "That's stupid," I muttered. Her smile vanished. "They think you should be afraid," she said quietly. I stood up. "I want my mom. She won't believe you." That sentence landed heavy. "She never does," Ilara added. She told me to take a shower. I locked the bathroom door. Steam filled the room, but I heard her, talking, not loudly, answering questions no one asked. I turned the water off early. I didn't even grab my shoes. I sprinted down the hall, heart pounding so loud I thought it would wake the whole house. I ducked into Lacey's room, pulled a blanket from under her bed, and curled up on the floor. I didn't sleep. Morning came slowly. Sunlight crept in, cruelly normal. Lacey woke up smiling, unaware. Caleb avoided me all day. He fed her breakfast. He stayed downstairs or outside. I stayed in my room, door closed, stomach twisted into knots. That night, I refused to sleep. When I heard my door open again, I didn't move. I waited. The door closed. Silence. I knew. I grabbed my pillow and blanket and went to Lacey's room. He was already there, halfway to her bed. "What are you doing?" I screamed. He jumped back like he'd been caught stealing. "Relax. I was just checking on her." I stood between him and my sister. My hands shook, but I didn't move. He left. I locked the door. Morning finally came. When my parents returned, cheerful and relaxed, I didn't tell them. I said I slept on the floor because Lacey had a bad dream. They laughed it off. Caleb left. I never saw him again. I didn't tell anyone for years. As an adult, the memory hasn't faded. It hasn't softened. It lives sharp and clear, a reminder of how close something terrible came, and how silence can protect the wrong people. I still wonder what would have happened if I hadn't woken up. I still wonder who else didn't. I was 13 the first time I realized that being trusted with someone else's kids meant your childhood ended a little earlier than everyone else's. I didn't think about it like that back then. All I knew was that my mom worked double shifts at the nursing home, her feet always sore, her eyes always tired, and the envelope of bills on our kitchen counter never seemed to get any thinner. Babysitting wasn't just pocket money for me. It was groceries, gas, and one less argument whispered late at night when she thought I was asleep. We lived in a quiet pocket of Maple Hollow, a suburban sprawl just outside Cedar Ridge, Ohio. The kind of neighborhood where people waved from driveways, kids rode bikes until the streetlights flickered on and nobody locked their doors during the day. Folks called it safe. Folks always do. Right up until it isn't. The Halversons lived 3 houses down from us. Their place wasn't fancy, but it was clean and warm, with beige siding, a wooden patio out back, and a maple tree that dumped leaves everywhere in the fall. Lyle Halverson worked logistics for a shipping company, and his wife, Rowan, managed HR at a regional office downtown. Good people. Solid people. The kind who said please, and meant it. Their boys were the real reason I loved that job. Sawyer was 8, skinny, sharp as a tack, always asking questions about how things worked. His little brother Benji was 5 and had a laugh that came from his whole body, like he couldn't hold it in if he tried. They called me Miss J, even though I'd told them 100 times they didn't have to. By the time I turned 15, I was their go-to sitter. Date nights, late meetings, last-minute emergencies. If Rowan texted, I showed up. No questions, no complaints. That Tuesday started like any other. "I hate to do this on such short notice," Rowan said, already halfway out the door, heels in one hand, phone in the other. "But my boss just pulled me into a noon meeting. Lyle's already gone." "It's fine," I said, smiling. "We'll be good." She handed me the keys anyway. She always did, even though she knew I wouldn't leave, and crouched to hug the boys. "Be good for Miss J, okay?" "Yes, ma'am," Sawyer said, serious as ever. Benji saluted. "Aye, aye." Rowan laughed, kissed their heads, and was gone. The house settled into its usual quiet hum, the fridge buzzing, the ceiling fan clicking softly, distant lawnmowers somewhere down the block. The boys sprawled on the living room rug with action figures while I made myself a bagel and tied my hair back. "Can we go outside later?" Benji asked. "After lunch," I said. "If it stays nice." It did. Bright blue sky, warm breeze, nothing out of place. We ate grilled cheese and apple slices around noon. I wiped sticky fingers, herded them upstairs to use the bathroom, and started the nap routine, even though Sawyer protested like he always did. "I don't nap," he said. "You rest," I corrected. Big difference. They laughed, climbed into their beds, and I pulled the curtains halfway closed. I was just about to head downstairs to grab my book when I heard it. Click, soft, mechanical, wrong. I froze at the top of the stairs. The sound came again, slow, deliberate, the patio door sliding open. My stomach dropped. I knew I'd locked it. I always did. Rowan was paranoid about that stuff, and she drilled it into me, locked the doors, even during the day. "Did Mom come back?" Benji whispered. "No," I said too quickly. I put a finger to my lips, my heart suddenly pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. Then the footsteps started. Heavy, unhurried, moving through the living room like whoever it was had all the time in the world. Every instinct I had screamed danger. "Both of you," I whispered, forcing calm into my voice. "Under your beds. Now." Sawyer didn't argue. Benji's eyes filled with tears, but he crawled under anyway. I closed their bedroom door and turned the lock with shaking fingers. My phone. I'd left it on the kitchen counter. I pressed my ear to the door, barely breathing. The footsteps came up the stairs. One step, another, wood creaking under weight that didn't belong. They stopped right outside the door. Benji sniffled. "Shh," I mouthed, but it was too late. A kick slammed into the door. The frame rattled. Benji started crying outright. Sawyer's breathing went fast and shallow. Another kick. "Open it," a man's voice growled. "Now." I backed up, my mind racing, fear flooding every inch of me. I was just a kid. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a plan. The door splintered on the third kick. A man filled the doorway. Thick arms, shaved head, sweat-darkened t-shirt. His eyes scanned the room like inventory. He dropped to one knee and yanked Sawyer out by the ankle. "Hey!" I screamed, the sound tearing out of me before I could stop it. I stepped out of the closet, hands shaking, heart in my throat. "Please," I said, "let him go. Take me instead." He looked at me then, really looked, and smirked. "Yeah," he said. "That'll work." He dragged me downstairs by my wrist. The boys followed, sobbing, clinging to my legs. In the kitchen, 2 more men were tearing through drawers, cabinets, anything that opened. One had a duffel bag. The other cursed under his breath. "Place is dry," he said. "What the hell?" I saw my phone on the counter. So close. The third man noticed my eyes flicker. He pulled a gun. Black. Real. Pressed it against my temple. "Don't," he said calmly, "or I swear I'll paint the walls with those kids." I went still. 20 minutes felt like 20 years. When they finally left, one of them struck me across the head. The world went dark. I woke up in a hospital bed. My mom was crying. The detective told me later that Sawyer had unlocked Rowan's phone, he knew the passcode, and called her while I was unconscious. She called 911 from the freeway. The men were caught weeks later. They'd hit houses across 3 states. They'd killed someone else. I quit babysitting that day. Some trust costs too much. I had just turned 14 that June. The kind of summer where the air sticks to your skin and cicadas scream like they're trying to prove something. 2 weeks into summer break, I was already bored out of my mind. My friends were either out of town or grounded, and my mom had started dropping hints about how idle time makes lazy habits. That was her polite way of saying you need a job. I wanted one anyway, not for responsibility or character building or whatever adults say, but for freedom. A little cash in my pocket meant movies without asking, gas money for my older cousin to drive me places, maybe even a cheap flip phone upgrade if I saved enough. That's when my grandma mentioned the Holloways. She brought it up one afternoon while we were sitting at her kitchen table, the one with the old burn mark near the edge from when Grandpa forgot a pan on the stove years ago. She stirred sugar into her iced tea and said, real casual, "You still looking for summer work, honey?" I nodded. Babysitting or something. Anything, really. "Well," she said, squinting like she was thinking hard, even though I later realized she'd already decided. "My friend Marlene knows a family on the north side. Nice people. 2 boys. They've been needing a sitter." The north side of town wasn't fancy, but it wasn't bad either. Mostly older homes, lots of trees, quiet streets where people still waved at each other. I'd ridden my bike through there a few times. "How old are the kids?" I asked. "One's about 10, the other 5, I think." That sounded easy enough. Old enough to talk, young enough to go to bed early. Perfect. Grandma called Marlene right then and there, on the kitchen phone with the long, curly cord. I listened while pretending not to, tracing the wood grain with my finger. By the time she hung up, she smiled at me. "They'd like to meet you. How's tomorrow?" The Holloways lived at the edge of the neighborhood, where the houses started to thin out and the woods crept closer. Their driveway was long and cracked, with weeds pushing through the concrete like they owned the place. The house itself was a 2-story faded blue with white trim that had seen better days. Not creepy, just old. We pulled up around 4 in the afternoon. The sky was overcast, heavy with that thick summer humidity that makes you feel like rain is watching you, deciding when to drop. The parents were friendly. Too friendly almost, like they were trying hard to make a good impression. The dad, Rick, had a firm handshake and tired eyes. The mom, Lauren, kept smiling, tucking her hair behind her ear over and over like a nervous habit. The boys were in the living room, sprawled on the floor with toy cars and plastic trucks. The older one, whose name turned out to be Caleb, had dark hair and sharp eyes. The little one, Noah, was blonde and skinny, with scabbed knees and a habit of chewing on his shirt collar. Caleb looked up when we walked in. "Who's that?" "That's Emma," Lauren said. "She might be babysitting you guys this summer." I waved. "Hey." Noah stared at me like I was something he hadn't decided whether to trust yet. Within minutes, we were all on the floor together. They showed me their trucks, explained elaborate rules to games they made up on the spot. Caleb was talkative, sarcastic in a way that reminded me of my older cousins. Noah stuck close, leaning into my side, warming up slowly. I remember thinking how normal it all felt. Safe. Familiar. Before we left, Rick handed me a folded sheet of paper. "Just some routines and rules," he said. "Nothing crazy." I glanced at it and nodded, stuffing it into my bag. As we walked back to the car, Grandma smiled at me. "You did good," she said. "They like you." I smiled back, already picturing myself with a little stack of babysitting money by August. The next night was my first official job. It rained all day, one of those steady, soaking rains that doesn't thunder or lightning. It just exists. By evening, the ground smelled like wet dirt and leaves, and the sky was the color of bruises. I walked to the Holloway's house with my hoodie pulled tight, rain tapping against the pavement. Their porch light glowed soft and yellow when I got there. Inside, the house felt different at night, quieter. The walls creaked now and then, settling like they were getting comfortable. Lauren rushed around, grabbing her purse. "We shouldn't be out too late," she said. The boys had dinner already. Pajamas are laid out. Bedtime at 8:30. Rick handed me the paper again, unfolded this time. Everything you need's there. I glanced down, skimming. No snacks after 8. No TV upstairs. Caleb brushes teeth first. Nightlight for Noah. And then, written smaller in the corner, almost like an afterthought, Noah says he hears tapping on his bedroom window at night. We think it's just imagination. Please don't encourage it. My stomach did a weird little flip. Ignore that, Lauren said quickly when she saw my face. He's been on a scary story kick. I nodded. Yeah, kids do that. They left a few minutes later, headlights sweeping across the rain-soaked yard as they pulled away. I locked the door behind them. The evening went smoothly at first. We watched cartoons, ate popsicles even though it was raining and kind of cold for them. Caleb told me all about how he was basically a grown-up and didn't need a babysitter, but still asked if I could sit next to him on the couch. Noah laughed loud and sudden, the kind of laugh that comes from nowhere and fills a room. By 8:30, I told them it was time for bed. Caleb groaned. It's still light out. It's raining, I said. That doesn't count. He rolled his eyes but went anyway. Noah dragged his feet. Literally. He lay flat on the floor and made me pull him up by his arms, giggling the whole time until we reached the stairs. Halfway up, his laughter faded. I don't want to sleep yet, he said quietly. You'll be fine, I told him. I'll be right downstairs. He hesitated at his bedroom door. His room was at the back of the house, facing the woods. A small window sat just above his bed, thin curtains hanging on either side. I tucked him in, turned on the nightlight shaped like a turtle. Emma, he whispered. Yeah? Did my mom tell you about the noise? I paused. What noise? The window. I smiled, forcing it to look natural. Probably just tree branches or bugs, it's summer. He didn't look convinced, but he nodded. Caleb was already asleep within minutes. Noah took longer, but eventually his breathing evened out. I went back downstairs, flipping on a lamp and settling onto the couch with my phone. About an hour and a half passed. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. The house was quiet enough that every little sound felt loud. The refrigerator hummed, the tick of the clock on the wall. Then I heard it. Emma. Noah's voice, sharp and scared, cutting through the silence. I bolted up the stairs 2 at a time. What's wrong? I asked, pushing into his room. He was sitting straight up in bed, eyes wide. It did it again. Did what? The window, he whispered. I heard it. My heart started beating faster, but I kept my voice calm. It's okay, I'll check. I turned on the overhead light and pulled the curtain aside. Nothing. Just darkness, the outline of trees and the faint glow of solar lights lining the neighbor's driveway. See? I said. Nothing there. He watched me closely. You promise? I promise. He lay back down, clutching his blanket. As I reached for the door, I heard it, a soft, deliberate tap against the glass. I froze. Slowly, I turned back to the window. My hand shook as I pulled the curtain aside again. Nothing. I swallowed hard. Probably just a bug, I said, more to myself than to him. But something felt wrong. Deep down, in that instinctual place you don't have words for yet. I took a breath, slid the window open, and leaned out just enough to be heard. This is private property, I said, my voice shaking despite my effort. I'm calling the police. For a second, there was nothing. Then, movement. Fast, panicked. The sound of footsteps tearing through wet leaves, branches snapping as something, or someone, ran toward the woods. I slammed the window shut and locked it. Noah was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. The police arrived within 10 minutes. 2 officers, both calm, both serious. They took my statement while one of them walked the perimeter with a flashlight. When I mentioned the tapping, one of them exchanged a look with the other. "You're not the first call we've had about that," he said. My stomach dropped. They explained that for months, people in the area had reported someone lurking near windows at night, tapping, watching, running when confronted. "Most folks think it's kids imagining things," the officer said. "But it's real." Lauren and Rick arrived home pale and shaken. They hugged their boys tight. Lauren cried. Rick apologized over and over. I stood there, arms wrapped around myself, feeling older than I had that morning. They never found the person. I never babysat for them again. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about Noah's window, about what might have happened if I hadn't checked, if I hadn't spoken up. And I wonder how many kids were told it was just their imagination. I was 18 when I took the babysitting job that still sits in the back of my throat like something I never fully swallowed. At that age, I thought I understood fear. I thought fear was flunking a class, or running out of gas on a back road, or getting a phone call you didn't want. I didn't yet understand the kind of fear that rewires how you listen to sounds at night, how you double-check locks without realizing you're doing it, how a child's quiet voice can carry more truth than any adult in the room. Back then, I lived in a sleepy Midwestern town where nothing ever really happened. The kind of place with strip malls, chain restaurants, and neighborhoods where porch lights stayed on all night because people trusted each other, or pretended they did. I was in my first year of college, taking afternoon classes so I could work nights. Babysitting paid better than the campus jobs, and I liked kids well enough. That's how I met the Hawthorne boys. Their house sat on the far east side of town, tucked into a cul-de-sac that always smelled faintly like cut grass and asphalt. 2 stories, beige siding, white trim. Nothing fancy, nothing run down. Just a regular house in a regular neighborhood. The kind of house you'd never look at twice. Their mom, Rena Hawthorne, worked night shifts at a medical billing office. She was a single mom doing her best, always tired but always polite. The kind of woman who apologized even when things weren't her fault. She had 3 boys. The youngest was Lyle, 3 years old. Big eyes, always sticky somehow. Shockingly well-behaved for a toddler. He liked lining up toy cars and would fall asleep clutching a stuffed dog with one ear chewed half off. The oldest was Grant, 7. Quiet, sharp, glued to video games and cartoons. He talked like a tiny adult sometimes, the kind of kid who noticed things and kept them to himself. The middle one was the hard part. His name was Nolan, 5 years old, stubborn, emotional, picky about food, impossible at bedtime. Every sitter has that one kid who makes the job 10 times harder, and Nolan was it. He cried easily, argued constantly, and seemed to carry around this low-level anger he didn't know what to do with. I'd been watching them for about 4 months when it happened, long enough that the house felt familiar, long enough that I knew which floorboards creaked and which light switches stuck, long enough that Rena trusted me completely, too completely. That night started like every other. Rena left for work just before 6, purse over her shoulder, keys already in her hand. "Pizza's in the freezer," she said, tired smile on her face. "They've got to be in bed by 9:30. Call me if anything's weird." "Always," I said, meaning tantrums or spilled juice or refusal to brush teeth weird. "Not this." She left, the door closing softly behind her. The evening passed in its usual rhythm. Frozen pizza, cartoons, a little chaos. Grant begged me to play video games with him, so we fired up the old console in the living room. Lyle fell asleep on the couch halfway through a movie, thumb in his mouth. Nolan complained about the pizza crust, then about the cheese, then about how his brother chewed too loud. Eventually I wrangled them upstairs. Lyle went down first, no problem. Grant followed after some convincing. Nolan dragged his feet, whining the whole time. I tucked him in, smoothed his blanket, and turned off the lamp. "Night, Nolan." He stared at the ceiling. Didn't answer. Downstairs, Grant called out, already annoyed. "Are you coming back or what?" "Yeah," I said. "1 sec." I went back down and sat on the floor beside him. We played one last game. I was losing on purpose, laughing, letting myself relax. That's when I heard Nolan cry. It was sharp and sudden, echoing down the stairwell. Not a tantrum cry, something tighter, fearful. I paused the game. "Stay here," I told Grant. I went upstairs and opened Nolan's door. He was sitting up in bed, eyes wide, blanket pulled to his chin. "There's something in my closet," he said. I smiled automatically, the sitter smile. "Nolan, there's nothing in your closet." "Yes, there is," he said, voice trembling. I walked over and patted his cheek lightly. "Bad dreams happen, buddy. I'll leave your door open, okay?" He hesitated, then nodded. I left, feeling slightly guilty but not concerned. Back downstairs, Grant rolled his eyes. "Is he doing his baby thing again?" "Be nice," I said. "Almost bedtime." We finished the game. He went upstairs to change. I stayed in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, scrolling my phone, enjoying the quiet. Then Nolan cried again. This time it sounded different. I went upstairs slower, my stomach tightening for reasons I couldn't explain. When I opened his door, he was under the covers, only his eyes visible. "It's still there," he whispered. I looked at the closet. The door was closed. "Why do you think that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "I hear it," he said. "It's moving." I laughed softly, more for myself than him. "Sweetie, closets make noises sometimes. Pipes, air, the house settling. I don't want you to open it," he said suddenly. That stopped me. I stepped closer anyway. "Nolan." A sound came from inside the closet. Not a bang, not a creak, a shift. Like weight moving, fabric brushing against wood. My chest went cold. I stood very still. It happened again, slow, careful. Nolan whispered, "See?" I didn't argue anymore. I picked him up, his arms locking around my neck. "We're going to your brother's room," I said. I grabbed Grant from the hallway, not bothering to explain. He protested until he saw my face. We locked ourselves into Lyle's room. I set Nolan on the bed and told Grant to stay quiet. Then I went into the connected bathroom and called Rena. "Rena," I whispered, "is there any chance there's an animal in the house, like raccoon, something?" "What?" she said, instantly alert. "Why?" "I'm hearing movement in Nolan's closet. He heard it first. I heard it too." There was a pause. "Check it," she said, then added too quickly, "Actually, wait. Keep me on the phone." I went back into the hallway. Nolan's door was open. The closet door was no longer closed. It was open a few inches. I didn't breathe. "Rena," I whispered. "Someone's been in the house." She cursed softly. "Oh God, it might be him. You need to get the boys out, now." "Who?" "My ex," she said. "Just please get out." I rushed back to Lyle's room, scooped him up, grabbed Nolan's hand, and whispered urgently to Grant. As I opened the front door, it slammed shut from the outside. Footsteps ran across the porch. Gone. I locked the door, shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone and called 911. The police came. Rena came home early. No one was found. No proof. No arrest. The locks were changed. I never babysat there again. Years later, Nolan's voice still echoes in my head. I hear it moving. Some kids know when something's wrong. Adults just don't listen.